April 1975. Spring rain was falling over the military district. The kind of rain that doesn't wash away the mud, it just makes everything heavier. I was standing in the kitchen of our small military housing unit, stirring a pot of lotus seed soup. Ryan's favorite. He had been acting strange for weeks. Distant, coming home late, looking at me like I was a piece of furniture he had outgrown. I knew what was coming, not because I was psychic, but because I had lived this day before. In my past life, the sound of the front door opening, heavy footsteps. He took off his military cap and hung it on the rack, the same rack I had bought from the county market 3 years ago when we first moved here. "Emily," he called. "Come sit down. We need to talk." I wiped my hands on my apron. I took a deep breath, and I walked into the living room. He was sitting on the wooden sofa, his uniform still damp from the rain. His face was serious, the face he used when briefing his subordinates, not the face of a husband talking to his wife. Same face, same words, same betrayal. "Emily, let's get a fake divorce," he said. The words hung in the air like smoke. In my past life, those words had shattered me. I had cried. I had grabbed his sleeve. I had asked 1,000 questions. Why? Who is the mission with? Is it dangerous? Will you write to me? Will you come back? Do you still love me? He had answered patiently, gently, like a doctor delivering bad news to a terminal patient. "It's for the organization. I need to appear single. At most 1 year. When the mission is over, we'll remarry." I promise. I had believed him. I had waited. 1 year became 2. 2 became 5. 5 became 10. And then I heard the news. Commander Ryan Cooper has married Agent Sophie White in a military ceremony attended by district leaders. The fake divorce had never been fake. Not to him. Not from the very beginning. But this life, I was ready. I picked up my teacup, the one with the tiny chip on the rim, the one I had refused to throw away because he gave it to me on our first anniversary. I took a slow sip. The tea was cold, just like our marriage. "Okay," I said. Ryan froze. His mouth was still half open, ready to deliver the next part of his carefully rehearsed speech. What did you say?" I said okay. I set the teacup down. "When do we file the papers?" He blinked. "Twice. 3 times. I could see the gears turning behind his eyes. This wasn't the script. I was supposed to cry. I was supposed to beg. I was supposed to make him feel guilty so he could comfort me and then leave anyway, feeling like a hero making a noble sacrifice. You're not going to ask why?" He stammered. "You already said it's for a mission. For the revolutionary cause. For the organization." I stood up, smoothing my apron. "I'm a soldier's wife. I support the organization's arrangements. It's my duty." Ryan's mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled out of water. "But Emily," "There's no but." I walked toward the kitchen. "What do you want for dinner?" "I was making lotus seed soup, but I can add some braised pork if you want. Your mother's recipe. We should have a good meal before you leave." I disappeared into the kitchen before he could respond. Behind me, I heard him exhale a long, confused breath. He didn't know what to do with this version of me. The version who didn't cry. The version who didn't cling. The version who said okay, like she was agreeing to take out the trash. Let him be confused. Let him be uneasy. That was the first crack in his perfect plan. That night, after Ryan went to bed, I sat by the window and let myself remember. The past life. The one I swore I would never relive. 1975, the original timeline I had cried for 3 days straight when Ryan first mentioned the fake divorce. My eyes were so swollen I could barely see. My mother called from the county, worried because I hadn't answered the phone. "Emily, are you okay? Is Ryan treating you well?" "I'm fine, Mom. Everything is fine." I lied. I always lied. Because that's what good wives did. They swallowed their pain and smiled. I signed the divorce papers with trembling hands. I moved out of the military housing and into a small rental room near the county school, where I found a job teaching English. "Just 1 year," Ryan said at the door of our old home, holding a suitcase. "I'll come back for you. I promise." I believed him. I waited. I wrote him letters, long, detailed letters about my students, about the spring flowers, about the new kitten the neighbor's children found. I sent them to his military address. He never wrote back. At first I made excuses. "He's busy. The mission is dangerous. He can't risk being discovered." Then, after 2 years, I stopped making excuses. I just waited. In silence. 1977. I heard through the military grapevine that Ryan had been promoted. He was now a lieutenant colonel. He had been seen at a banquet in the provincial capital with a beautiful woman in uniform. That's Sophie White, another military wife whispered to me at the market. She's an agent. Very accomplished. They say she and Commander Cooper are close. I went home that night and threw up. 1980. 5 years had passed. My mother died. I wasn't there. I was too busy teaching in a rural village, hoping Ryan would remember I existed. By the time I got the news, she was already buried. She asked for you, my father said on the phone, his voice cracked with age. She kept saying, "Where's Emily? Where's my daughter?" I couldn't answer. I just hung up and cried. 1985. 10 years. I was 35 years old. My hair had started to gray. My hands were rough from washing clothes in cold river water. My students loved me, but every night I went home to an empty room. Then the announcement came. Commander Ryan Cooper and Agent Sophie White were married yesterday in a ceremony at the military district headquarters. District leaders attended. The couple will reside in the provincial capital. I read the notice 3 times. Then I folded the newspaper, placed it in my drawer, and went to teach my class. That night I didn't cry. I just sat on my bed, staring at the wall, feeling nothing. Nothing at all. 1988. 13 years after the fake divorce. I was walking across a street in the county town, carrying a bag of vegetables for my dinner. It was raining the same kind of spring rain as the day Ryan first mentioned the divorce. I didn't see the truck. The last thing I heard was the screech of tires. The last thing I saw was a flash of white light. The last thing I felt was not pain. It was a deep, crushing sense of injustice. I never deserved this. Then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the same bed in the same military housing unit. The same chipped teacup was on the nightstand. The same military cap hung on the same rack. The calendar on the wall read, March 1975, 1 month before Ryan would ask for the fake divorce. I sat up so fast my head spun. I looked at my hands. Young. Smooth. No wrinkles. No calluses. I was back. The first thing I did was call my mother. Not because I had anything to say, but because I needed to hear her voice. In my past life, she had died alone, asking for me. I would not let that happen again. "Mom," I said when she answered, my voice cracking. "I love you, Emily." "What's wrong? Are you sick?" "No. I just wanted to say it." There was a pause. Then she laughed that warm, familiar laugh I had missed for 3 decades. "You silly girl. I love you too. Now go eat your breakfast. You have a whole life ahead of you." "I know, Mom. I know." I hung up and sat on the edge of the bed, my heart pounding. I had 1 month. 1 month to prepare. 1 month to change everything. Step 1, watch. Observe. Learn. Over the next few weeks, I paid attention to Ryan in a way I never had before. I noticed the way his eyes lingered on the female officers at district events. I noticed the way he talked about Sophie White not by name, but by description. "There's this agent," he said one night at dinner, trying to sound casual. "Very capable. The organization thinks highly of her." "Oh," I said, not looking up from my rice. "What's her name?" "Sophie." "Sophie White? She sounds impressive." He looked at me, surprised by my lack of jealousy. "You're not bothered. Why would I be bothered? She's your colleague. I'm your wife." I smiled the same smile I had practiced in the mirror for weeks. Calm, confident, utterly unconcerned. Ryan didn't know what to do with that. He had expected me to be insecure. He had expected me to cling tighter, to ask more questions, to make him feel guilty. Instead, I gave him space. So much space, he started to wonder if I cared at all. Good. Let him wonder. The night before Ryan was going to ask for the fake divorce, I lay awake in bed. He was asleep beside me, his breathing slow and steady. I stared at the ceiling and thought about everything I was going to do. I would agree to the divorce immediately. No tears. No questions. No clinging. I would move to the county and take the teaching job I had in my past life, but this time, I would do it better. I would build a career. I would make a name for myself. I would let Ryan have Sophie. Let him marry her. Let him live the life he thought he wanted. And then I would let him watch me rise. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, it was morning. April 1, 1975. The day everything would change. I got up early. I made breakfast eggs, rice porridge, pickled vegetables. I set the table. I put on my nicest dress, the blue one he said he liked. When Ryan walked into the kitchen, he froze. "You're dressed up. It's a nice day," I said, pouring him tea. I felt like looking nice. He sat down, his eyes never leaving me. Something was different. He could feel it, but he couldn't name it. After breakfast, he cleared his throat. "Emily, we need to talk." "Okay." He launched into his speech, the same speech from my past life, word for word. The mission. The need to appear single. The promise to remarry within a year. When he finished, he looked at me, waiting for my reaction. "Okay," I said. "Okay, it's okay. When do we file the papers?" His jaw dropped. I watched the shock ripple across his face, and I felt something I had never felt before in his presence. Power. You're not going to ask why? You already explained. I stood up and began clearing the dishes. "It's for the revolutionary cause. I support you completely." "What time tomorrow?" 9 in the morning. "I'll be ready." I walked into the kitchen and let the door swing shut behind me. Behind me, I heard Ryan exhale slowly. He didn't know what had just happened. He didn't understand the woman he was married to. That was fine. He didn't need to understand. He just needed to sign the papers. The next morning, at exactly 9:00 a.m., we walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau. The clerk looked at us, a military officer and his wife, both so calm, and asked, "Are you sure?" I smiled. We've never been more sure of anything in our lives. Ryan looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. He had no idea. This was just the beginning. The Civil Affairs Bureau in the county town was a small gray building with peeling paint and a faded red star above the door. The rain from yesterday had stopped, leaving behind puddles that reflected the gray sky. Ryan and I walked in together. Not side by side, he was half a step ahead, like he was leading a subordinate. That was fine. Let him lead. I knew exactly where we were going. The clerk was a middle-aged woman with wire-rimmed glasses and a perpetual frown. Her nameplate read, "Comrade Wang." She looked at our referral letters, then at us, then back at the letters. "Divorce," she said, like she couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. "You want a divorce?" "Yes, comrade," Ryan said, his voice firm. "It's for work." "A mission?" Comrade Wang's eyebrows shot up. "For work? I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've seen couples divorce because of affairs, because of money, because they couldn't stand each other. But for work, revolutionary work," I added, smiling brightly. "My husband has been assigned an important mission. He needs to appear single. I'm supporting him." Comrade Wang stared at me like I had grown a second head. "You're supporting him, of course. A soldier's wife must be willing to sacrifice." Ryan shifted uncomfortably beside me. He had wanted this, the divorce, the freedom, the clean break. But he hadn't expected me to be so eager. He hadn't expected me to smile. "Well," Comrade Wang said, pulling out the forms, "if you're both sure. What about property division?" Before Ryan could speak, I answered. "The house goes to him. He needs a stable home base for when he's between missions. The savings, we split 50-50. I don't want anything else." Ryan turned to look at me, his mouth open. "Emily, you don't have to. It's fair," I cut him off. "You earned most of it anyway." I just kept the home. The words were polite, reasonable, and they cut deeper than any insult. I just kept the home. In other words, I was the housekeeper, the cook, the woman who ironed his uniforms and smiled at his superiors. And now I was being paid off for my service. Comrade Wang pushed the papers across the counter. "Sign here, and here, and here." Ryan signed first. His hand was steady. No hesitation. Then it was my turn. I picked up the pen. I looked at the paper. In my past life, my hand had trembled so badly I could barely write my name. I had cried onto the page, smearing the ink. This time, I signed with a flourish. Clear, confident, final, Emily Lane. Done. Comrade Wang stamped the papers with a loud thunk. Divorced. Effective immediately. You are no longer husband and wife. Ryan and I walked out of the building together. The spring sun had broken through the clouds. "Emily," he said, stopping on the steps. "I'll come back for you. I promise. When the mission is over." "Ryan," I turned to face him. "Don't make promises you can't keep." His face went pale. "I'm not saying that to be cruel," I continued. "I'm saying it because you don't need to carry that weight. Go. Do your mission. Be free. I'll be fine, but we said we'd remarry. You said we'd remarry. I said okay, there's a difference. I picked up my small suitcase, the one I had packed the night before, with my clothes, my books, and my grandmother's jade bracelet. Everything else stayed behind. I didn't want it. Goodbye, Ryan. I walked down the steps. I didn't look back. Behind me, I heard him call my name. Once, twice, a third time. I kept walking. The bus to the county town left at 10:30 a.m. I was the only passenger, aside from an old woman carrying a basket of eggs and a young soldier going home on leave. I sat by the window, watching the military district disappear behind me. The barracks, the training grounds, the small house where I had spent 3 years trying to be the perfect wife. Gone. Good. The old woman next to me peered at my face. Are you all right, dear? You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that, I said with a small smile. Where are you headed? The county. I'm going to be a teacher. A teacher? Her face lit up. That's wonderful. My granddaughter wants to be a teacher. She's always playing school with her dolls. She should follow that dream, I said. Teaching is important work. You shape the next generation. You're so young to be so wise, the old woman said, shaking her head. My own daughter, she's about your age. All she thinks about is finding a husband. I keep telling her, a woman needs her own 2 feet to stand on. A man can leave. Your education. That stays. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. Not from sadness. From recognition. Your daughter is lucky to have you, I said. She doesn't think so, the old woman laughed. She says I'm old-fashioned. But some truths don't change with the times. No, they don't. The bus rumbled on, past rice paddies and small villages. The scenery blurred outside the window. In my past life, I had taken the same bus, but I had been crying so hard I couldn't see anything. This time, I saw everything. The green of the spring rice shoots, the white of the egrets standing in the water, the red of the wild azaleas blooming on the hillsides. The world was beautiful. I had forgotten that. The county town was small, one main street, a few shops, a school, a government building, and a market that came alive every morning at dawn. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't exciting. But it was home. At least, it was where I had grown up. I went straight to the county one high school. Principal Chen was in his office, reading a newspaper. He was a thin man with thick glasses and a kind face. In my past life, he had given me a chance when no one else would. He had looked past the fact that I was a divorced woman, a label that carried shame in those days, and saw only my qualifications. Comrade Emily, he said, looking up from his newspaper. His eyes widened behind his glasses. I wasn't expecting you. Your appointment isn't until next week. I know, Principal Chen. But I was in the area, and I wanted to see if I could start early. Start early? He set down the newspaper. Most teachers beg for more time off. You're asking for less. I love teaching, I said simply. And I have a lot to give. The sooner I start, the sooner the students benefit. Principal Chen studied me for a long moment. Then he laughed, a dry, raspy sound that turned into a cough. All right, Comrade Emily. All right. Your classroom is on the 2nd floor. Class 3, grade 11. 45 students. They're a handful. The previous teacher quit after 3 months. I'll handle them. We'll see. He handed me a set of keys. Your dorm is in the building behind the school. It's small, but it's clean. There's a shared kitchen and bathroom. You'll be rooming with another young teacher, Comrade Lily. She's a bit enthusiastic, but she means well. Thank you, Principal Chen. I walked out of his office and across the schoolyard. The building was old, the paint was peeling, and the windows were drafty. But it was mine. This was where I would build my new life. The dorm room was small, 2 wooden beds, 2 desks, 2 wardrobes, and a window that faced the schoolyard. My new roommate, Lily, was already there, sitting cross-legged on her bed, reading a romance novel. She looked up when I walked in. Her eyes were wide and curious. You must be Emily, she said, jumping up. Principal Chen told me about you. You're from the military district, right? Married to an officer. What's it like? Is it glamorous? Do you go to fancy parties? I hesitated. How much should I tell her? It was a learning experience. Lily's eyebrows shot up. Did something happen? We got divorced. Lily's mouth fell open. Divorced? But you're so young. And you're so pretty. Why would he? It's complicated. I set my suitcase on the empty bed. But I'd rather not talk about it if you don't mind. Of course, of course. Lily nodded vigorously, then immediately asked, but was there another woman? There's always another woman, isn't there? I read about these things. In the cities, it's happening more and more. Men get a little power, a little status, and suddenly their wives aren't good enough anymore. I looked at Lily, really looked at her. She was younger than me, maybe 22, with a round face and a perpetual bounce in her step. She talked too much and asked too many questions, but her heart was in the right place. Yes, I said quietly. There was another woman. Lily's face fell. I'm sorry, Emily. That's terrible. It's okay. I'm better off now. You are. I am. I sat down on my bed and looked around the small room. I have a job I love. A roof over my head. A future ahead of me. What more could I want? Lily stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. In 1975, a divorced woman was supposed to be pitiful. She was supposed to cry into her pillow and wear black and avoid the gossip of the neighbors. But I wasn't pitiful. I wasn't broken. I was free. You're amazing, Lily said finally. If I were you, I'd be a mess. Give it time, I said with a small smile. Life has a way of teaching you what matters. The next morning, I walked into classroom 3 for the first time. 45 faces stared back at me. 16 and 17-year-olds, full of restless energy and adolescent attitude. They had chased away their last teacher. They thought they could chase me away too. Wrong. Good morning, class, I said, writing my name on the blackboard. I'm your new English teacher, Emily Lane. Silence. A few of them were looking at me with open hostility. A boy in the back tall, with a rebellious glint in his eyes, leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. Teacher, we don't need English, he said. We're not going abroad. We're going to work in the factories or the fields. What's the point? In my past life, that question would have flustered me. I would have stumbled over my words, tried to justify the subject, lost their respect immediately. This time I smiled. What's your name? Lai Wai. Lai Wai, do you know what year it is? 1975. Everyone knows that. And do you know what's going to happen in the next 10 years? He frowned. How would I know that? I'll tell you. I walked to the front of the classroom and leaned against the teacher's desk. The world is changing. China is changing. In a few years, we're going to open our doors to the world. Foreigners will come. Foreign businesses will come. And the people who can speak English, they'll be the ones who get the good jobs. The ones who travel. The ones who see the world. The classroom was silent now. Even the troublemakers were listening. I'm not teaching you English so you can pass a test. I'm teaching you English so you can choose your future, not be trapped by it. Lai Wai's arms slowly uncrossed. Now, I said, turning to the blackboard, let's start with something simple. Hello. My name is, everyone repeat after me. Hello. My name is, 45 voices. 45 futures. I would not fail them. That night, as I was grading papers in my dorm room, there was a knock on the door. I opened it. Standing there was a young man in a Zhongshan suit. He was holding a folder and looking at me with an expression of barely concealed admiration. Miss Emily, my name is James Zhang. I'm from the County Cultural Bureau. I've heard about your teaching methods. I'd like to talk to you about a proposal. I didn't know it yet, but that knock would change everything. James Zhang was not what I expected. He was young, maybe 27 or 28, with sharp features and intelligent eyes behind a pair of wire-rimmed glasses. He spoke with the careful precision of someone who had been educated in the city, but chose to return to the countryside. His Zhongshan suit was clean, but worn at the cuffs. Miss Emily, he said, stepping into my dorm room with a respectful nod. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice. Comrade Zhang, I replied, gesturing to the wooden chair by my desk. Please sit. Lily is out grading papers, so we have the room to ourselves. He sat, placing the folder on his lap. His hands were steady, but I could see the slight tremor of nervousness. I'll be direct, he said. The County Cultural Bureau is planning to launch an English training program for government workers and professionals. We've heard about your teaching methods. The students in your class have improved more in 2 weeks than they did in an entire semester with their previous teacher. Word travels fast, I said, pouring him a cup of tea from the small pot on my desk. In a small county, word travels at the speed of gossip. He accepted the tea with both hands, a sign of respect. We would like you to be the lead instructor for the program. I took a sip of my own tea, buying myself time to think. In my past life, this opportunity had come too late. I was too exhausted, too beaten down by years of waiting for Ryan, too convinced that my only value was as someone's wife. I had turned James down. I don't have time, I had said. I have to focus on my students. What I had really meant was, I don't believe I deserve more. This life was different. Tell me more about the program, I said. James's eyes lit up. He opened the folder and spread out several pages of handwritten notes. The program will run on Wednesday evenings and Saturday afternoons. We have 30 students signed up already: county officials, hospital doctors, factory engineers, people who need English for their work or who want to prepare for the future. The future? He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Miss Emily, I don't know if you've noticed, but things are changing. The political winds are shifting. There's talk of opening up. Reforms. If that happens, English will become essential. I looked at him with new respect. James Zheng was not just a bureaucrat. He was a man who could see what was coming. You're very observant, Comrade Zheng. I try to be. He smiled a boyish smile that softened his sharp features. So, what do you say? I'll do it, really, really. But I have conditions. Name them. First, I want control over the curriculum. I won't teach from outdated textbooks. I'll design my own materials. James nodded. Reasonable. Second, I want the program to be free for the first 6 months. We need to prove its value before asking people to pay. He hesitated. That might be difficult. The Bureau has a limited budget. Then I'll teach for free for the first 6 months. His eyes widened. You would do that? I believe in this, Comrade Zheng. English isn't just a language. It's a key. It opens doors. I want as many people as possible to have that key. James was silent for a long moment. Then he set down his teacup and extended his hand. Miss Emily, I think this is the beginning of something important. I shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and entirely professional. I think so too. The first training session was held in a large room at the County Cultural Bureau. 30 students sat in rows of wooden chairs, their ages ranging from early 20s to late 40s. Some held notebooks. Others had brought tape recorders, expensive devices that showed how seriously they took this. I stood at the front of the room, looking out at their faces. In my past life, I had taught similar classes, but always with a sense of exhaustion. I had been going through the motions, my heart somewhere else. Now I was fully present. Good evening, comrades, I said. Welcome to the first session of the County English Training Program. My name is Emily Lane. I'll be your instructor. A man in the front row, a doctor, judging by the white coat he had thrown over his chair, raised his hand. Teacher Emily, I'm 43 years old. Is it too late for me to learn English? Comrade, I said, I once knew a man who learned to read at 60. By the time he died at 90, he had written 3 books. It is never too late to learn. The only question is, how badly do you want it? The doctor nodded, a new determination in his eyes. The first lesson was simple greetings, introductions, basic vocabulary. But I didn't just teach words. I taught stories. I told them about the world outside China, about the places I had never been but had read about in books, about London's fog and New York's skyscrapers and Paris's cafes. Their eyes grew wide. Their pens moved faster. Teacher Emily, a young woman asked during the break, have you been to these places? Not yet, I said. But I plan to. And maybe someday you will too. By the end of the session, the students were buzzing with excitement. They crowded around me with questions, their earlier hesitations forgotten. James Zheng stood at the back of the room, watching. When our eyes met, he gave me a small nod of approval. A week later, I received a letter. The envelope was thick, military-issued, with Ryan's name in the return address. I recognized his handwriting, immediately the neat, precise strokes of a man who had been trained to write reports. I set the letter on my desk and stared at it for a long time. Should I open it? In my past life, I would have torn it open with trembling hands, desperate for any sign that he still thought of me. I would have read his words 100 times, searching for hidden meanings, for promises, for hope. This life, I was tempted to throw it in the trash. But curiosity won. I opened the envelope. Emily, I hope this letter finds you well. I've been thinking about you. The mission is progressing, but it's harder than I expected. Not the work, the loneliness. I miss coming home to a warm meal. I miss your voice. I miss the way you would hum while you cooked. Sophie, the agent I'm working with, is competent, but she's not you. She doesn't know how to make braised pork the way you do. She doesn't know that I like my tea with 2 sugars, not 1. I know, I said the divorce was temporary. I meant it. When this is over, I want to come back to you. I want to try again. Please write back. Let me know you're okay. Ryan, I read the letter twice. Then I set it down and laughed. He missed my cooking. Not me. My cooking. He missed the convenience of having a wife who took care of him. He missed the comfort of a warm home while he was out playing revolutionary hero with Sophie White. He doesn't know that I like my tea with 2 sugars, not 1. What a joke. I had made his tea every day for 3 years. Of course, I knew how he took it. But Sophie didn't. And that was the problem, wasn't it? Sophie was his equal in work, but she wasn't his servant. He wanted both. A partner in public and a maid at home. Not anymore. I picked up a pen and wrote my reply. Ryan, I'm doing well. The teaching is going smoothly. My students are making progress. I've also started an English training program for county workers. Life is full. As for your mission, focus on it. Don't worry about me. I'm not your responsibility anymore. We're divorced. There's no need to remarry. I wish you all the best with Sophie. Emily, I sealed the envelope and dropped it in the mailbox on my way to class. That night, Lily cornered me in our dorm room. You got a letter today, she said, not even pretending she hadn't seen. From him, right? Your ex-husband? Yes, what did he say? He misses my cooking. Lily's face scrunched up in confusion. That's it. He didn't say he misses you. He thinks he does. But what he really misses is having someone to take care of him. Aren't those the same thing? No. I sat down on my bed, pulling my knees up to my chest. Loving someone means wanting them to be happy, even if it costs you something. Using someone means wanting yourself to be comfortable, even if it costs them everything. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You're really wise, Emily. Did someone teach you that, or did you learn it the hard way? The hardest way possible. She didn't ask for details. Instead, she crawled onto my bed and sat beside me, bumping her shoulder against mine. Well, I'm glad you're here. In this county. In this room. Even if you are a little scary sometimes. Scary, you know. The way you look at people, sometimes like you can see right through them. Like you know what they're going to do before they do it. I almost laughed. Maybe I do. Stop it. You're doing it right now. We both laughed, then the easy, comfortable laughter of 2 women who had found friendship in an unexpected place. Lily, I said, can I ask you something? Anything. Why aren't you married? She shrugged. Haven't found the right person. My mother says I'm too picky. My father says I'm too focused on my career. But I'd rather be alone than be with someone who makes me feel alone. That's very wise for someone so young. I learned it from watching the women in my village, she said. So many of them married young, had children, spent their whole lives serving husbands who didn't appreciate them. By the time their children grew up and left, they had nothing left. No identity. No purpose. Just an empty house and a lifetime of regret. Her words hit me like a punch to the chest, because that was exactly what I had been in my past life. An empty house, a lifetime of regret. You're smarter than I was at your age, I said. I'm not smarter. I just had better examples of what not to do. 2 weeks later, I received another letter. This one was not from Ryan. The envelope was plain, with no return address, but the handwriting was unfamiliar elegant, confident, with sharp loops and straight lines. I opened it. Comrade Emily Lane, I am Sophie White. I know who you are. I would like to meet you. There are things I need to say to you in person. If you are willing, please come to the provincial capital this Saturday. There is a tea house on Renman Road called Quiet Waters. I will be there at 2:00 p.m. This is not a trap. I give you my word as an officer. Sophie White, I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in my desk drawer. Sophie White wanted to meet me. In my past life, I had never met her face to face. I had only seen her from a distance at the wedding I wasn't invited to, standing beside Ryan in her crisp military uniform, her smile bright and confident. She had everything I didn't. Status, career, the admiration of her peers, the love of my husband. But in this life, I wasn't jealous of her. I was curious. What did she want to say to me? Did she feel guilty? Did she want to gloat? Did she want to warn me away? There was only one way to find out. Lily, I said, I need to go to the provincial capital this Saturday. Can you cover my afternoon class? Lily looked up from her grading. The provincial capital. What's there? Answers. Saturday arrived faster than I expected. I took the early bus to the provincial capital, my heart pounding with a strange mix of anxiety and anticipation. The tea house on Renmin Road was easy to find. A small, quiet building tucked between a bookstore and a pharmacy. Through the window, I could see a woman in military uniform sitting at a table near the back. Sophie White. She looked up as I walked in. Our eyes met. Neither of us smiled. The tea house smelled of jasmine tea and old wood. Soft light filtered through paper screens, casting everything in a warm, golden glow. It was the kind of place where people came to have difficult conversations. Sophie White stood as I approached her table. She was taller than I had imagined, or maybe it was just the way she carried herself. Her uniform was immaculate, her posture perfect. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple bun, and her eyes were the color of strong coffee. "Comrade Emily," she said, extending her hand. "Thank you for coming." I shook her hand. Her grip was firm, the grip of someone who had been trained to handle weapons. "Comrade Sophie," I replied. "Shall we sit?" We sat across from each other. A waitress appeared and poured tea, a dark, fragrant oolong that steamed in the cool air. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Sophie set down her teacup and looked at me directly. "You're not what I expected, so I've been told. What did you expect?" From me, I considered the question. "I expected you to be beautiful." "You are." "I expected you to be confident." "You are." "I expected you to be the kind of woman who gets what she wants." "And what do you think I want?" "Ryan." Sophie's face flickered a micro-expression of surprise, quickly suppressed. "You're very direct. I've learned that indirectness is a waste of time." She picked up her teacup again, not drinking, just holding it. "Ryan talks about you. I'm sure he does. He says you were a good wife. That you took care of his mother before she died. That you never complained, even when things were hard. That's what good wives do. They don't complain, but you're not his wife anymore." "No, I'm not." Sophie set down the teacup. Her eyes were searching mine, looking for something: jealousy, maybe, or bitterness, or regret. "Do you hate me?" she asked. "No, why not? I'm the reason he left you. He left me because he wanted to leave me." I leaned back in my chair. "You were just the excuse. If it wasn't you, it would have been someone else. A man who truly wants to stay doesn't need a fake divorce to go find himself." Sophie's composure cracked just slightly. "He told me the divorce was temporary, that he would remarry you after the mission. And you believed him." "I wanted to. We all want to believe the things that make us feel special." I took a sip of my tea. "But the truth is, Ryan doesn't know what he wants. He wants a woman who understands his work, that's you. And he wants a woman who takes care of his home, that was me. He wants both, but he doesn't want to feel guilty about either." Sophie was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. "He still has your photo. In his wallet." "I saw it." "Then you should ask him why." "I did. He said he forgot it was there. Men don't forget things they want to forget. They only forget things they don't care about." Sophie's hands trembled slightly. She clasped them together in her lap to still them. "I thought if I met you, I would feel better. Or worse. I don't know. But I didn't expect to feel this." Confused. I smiled, not cruelly, but with genuine sympathy. "Comrade Sophie, can I give you some advice? Please, don't be anyone's second choice. And don't let a man tell you a fake divorce is for your own good. It never is." She stared at me. "You really don't want him back?" "I want him to be happy. Just not with me." I stood up. The tea was finished. The conversation was finished. "Emily," Sophie said as I turned to leave. "Thank you. For coming. For being honest. Take care of yourself, Comrade Sophie. And remember, a man who will lie with you will eventually lie to you." I walked out of the tea house and into the afternoon sun. On the bus back to the county, I thought about Sophie White. In my past life, I had hated her. I had imagined her as a villain, a scheming woman who had stolen my husband and destroyed my future. But sitting across from her in that tea house, I saw something else. She was just a woman. A woman who had fallen for a man's promises. A woman who thought she was special because he had chosen her. But he hadn't chosen her. He had chosen himself. He had chosen the path that gave him everything he wanted: a career, a partner, and no guilt. A man who will lie with you will eventually lie to you. I wondered if Sophie would remember those words. I wondered if she would recognize the truth in them before it was too late. Probably not. Love made people blind. I knew that better than anyone. 3 months passed. The training program flourished. My students' English scores improved. Word of my teaching methods spread beyond the county. Then came the invitation. Comrade Emily Lane is invited to speak at the Provincial English Education Conference as the keynote presenter. I read the letter twice to make sure I wasn't dreaming. This is huge, Lily squealed when I told her. The provincial conference. Teachers from all over the province will be there. You'll be famous. I don't need to be famous. I just need to do a good job. You're so modest. It's annoying, I laughed. Someone has to balance out your enthusiasm. The conference was held in the provincial capital, the same city where I had met Sophie in the tea house. This time, I wasn't there for personal drama. I was there as a professional. The auditorium was packed. Over 200 English teachers from across the province sat in the audience, their faces expectant. I stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces. My hands were steady. My voice was clear. Comrades, good morning. I'm Emily Lane from the County No. 1 High School. Today, I want to talk about something that matters more than grammar or vocabulary. I want to talk about why we teach. I spoke for 45 minutes. I talked about my methods, the focus on practical communication, the use of stories to build engagement, the importance of making students feel capable rather than afraid. But more than that, I talked about purpose. We are not just teaching English. We are teaching possibility. Every word a student learns is a door that opens. Every sentence they can speak is a bridge to a future they can't yet imagine. That is our job. That is our privilege. When I finished, the applause was thunderous. After the conference, Director Wang from the Provincial Education Department approached me. Comrade Emily, that was exceptional. I've been in education for 30 years, and I've never heard anyone articulate the mission so clearly. Thank you, Director Wang. I have a proposal for you. The province is launching a teacher training program, a way to spread innovative teaching methods to every county. We want you to lead it. And if you're willing, we'd like to transfer you to the provincial capital. The provincial capital. A promotion. A bigger platform. More opportunities. In my past life, I would have said no. I would have been too afraid of change, too attached to the familiar, too convinced that I didn't deserve more. This life, I didn't hesitate. I would be honored, Director Wang. Ryan found out about my transfer within a week. The military district had eyes everywhere. He showed up at my dorm on a Sunday afternoon, his uniform rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. You're moving to the provincial capital? He asked, not even bothering with a greeting. Hello to you too, Ryan. Emily, answer me. Yes, I'm moving to the provincial capital. The education department offered me a position. I accepted. Without talking to me, I stared at him. Why would I talk to you? We're divorced. But we said, you said. I stepped out of the doorway so he could enter, but I didn't invite him to sit. I just nodded. Nodding isn't agreeing. It's just not arguing. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I remembered from our marriage. Emily, I don't understand you anymore. You used to tell me everything. Now you're making major life decisions without even a letter. You made a major life decision without telling me. You decided to get a divorce. You decided to work with Sophie White. You decided to build a life that didn't include me. Why should I consult you about mine? Because I still care about you. Do you? I crossed my arms. Or do you just care about the idea of me? The woman who waits at home, who cooks your meals, who asks nothing for herself. Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it. That's what I thought. Emily, please. His voice was raw. I know I made mistakes. I know I hurt you. But I'm trying to be better. Doesn't that count for something? It counts for something. Just not enough. I walked to the door and held it open. You should go, Ryan. You have a mission. Remember? He stood there for a long moment, his eyes searching my face for something, a crack, a weakness, a sign that the old Emily was still in there somewhere. He didn't find it. Goodbye, Emily. Goodbye, Ryan. He walked out. I closed the door behind him and leaned against it, my heart pounding. That was harder than I expected. But I didn't cry. I didn't call him back. I didn't write him a letter, apologizing for being cold. I just stood there alone and let myself feel proud. The transfer to the provincial capital happened quickly. Within a month, I had packed my bags, said goodbye to Lily, who cried, and moved into a new dorm room in the city. My new office was on the second floor of the Provincial Education Department building. It had a window that faced the street, a desk made of real wood, and a nameplate that read, Deputy Director Emily Lane. I was 25 years old, and I was just getting started. The provincial capital was a different world from the county town. Wide streets, tall buildings, people who walked faster, talked louder, and dressed better. My new dorm was in a complex for government workers, a single room with a private bathroom. A luxury I hadn't had since leaving the military district. There was a shared kitchen on each floor, but most nights I ate alone in my room, grading papers and preparing lesson plans. Deputy Director Lane, my new assistant, said on my first day. His name was Charlie, a young man in his early 20s with an eager smile and a tendency to talk too fast. Everyone is so excited to have you here. Your speech at the conference was legendary. Legendary is a strong word. You're too modest. Seriously, people are still talking about it. I smiled and got to work. The teacher training program was my baby. I designed the curriculum from scratch, drawing on everything I had learned in my past life and everything I wished I had known. I recruited instructors from across the province, choosing them not for their credentials, but for their passion. I don't care if you have a degree from Beijing, I told them at our first meeting. I care if you can make a student who is afraid of English feel brave. The first cohort of trainees arrived in March. 50 teachers from 50 different counties, each one hungry for knowledge. I taught them, I pushed them, I challenged them to be better than they thought they could be. And they rose to the occasion. 6 months into my new role, I received an unexpected visitor. James Zheng walked into my office one afternoon, carrying a folder under his arm. He looked different from the last time I had seen him, more confident, more at ease. His Zhongshan suit had been replaced by a Western-style jacket, a sign of the changing times. Deputy Director Lane, he said with a slight bow. You look well, Comrade Zheng. I stood to shake his hand. What brings you to the provincial capital? I've been transferred. The Provincial Cultural Bureau wanted someone who could help with international outreach. International outreach? He sat down across from my desk, his eyes bright with excitement. Things are changing, Emily. Faster than most people realize. There's talk of normalized relations with the United States, trade agreements, exchange programs. The world is opening up and China needs people who can bridge the gap. And you want to be one of those people. I want to help. I studied him for a moment. James Zheng was ambitious, but not in the way Ryan was ambitious. Ryan wanted power for its own sake. James wanted impact. He wanted to build something. What are you proposing? I'm proposing a partnership. He opened his folder and spread out several documents. The Provincial Cultural Bureau and the Provincial Education Department working together on an English training initiative for government officials. We provide the funding and the access. You provide the curriculum and the instruction. I read through the documents carefully. The proposal was ambitious, a multi-year program that would train hundreds of officials in English language and cross-cultural communication. This is a lot, I said, but it's also exactly what we need. If China is going to engage with the world, our officials need to be able to speak to the world. So you're interested? I'm interested. But I have conditions. Name them. First, the curriculum needs to focus on practical communication, not just theory. Second, we need to recruit instructors who reflect the diversity of our province, not just the elites from the capital. Third, I hesitated. Third, I want to be involved in the selection of the participants. No political favors, no backroom deals, only the most qualified officials, regardless of their connections. James smiled. You drive a hard bargain, Emily Lane. I've learned that if you don't ask for what you want, you won't get it. Fair enough. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? I shook his hand. We have a deal. Word spread quickly about my collaboration with James Zheng. And with the gossip came the rumors. Did you hear about Deputy Director Lane? She's spending a lot of time with that young man from the Cultural Bureau. I heard they're working on a project together. Very closely, very closely. What does that mean? You know what it means. I heard the whispers in the hallways, in the cafeteria, in the women's restroom. People who had never spoken to me suddenly had opinions about my personal life. It was exhausting. It was infuriating. And it was deeply familiar. In my past life, the gossip had crushed me. I had stopped going to social events. I had stopped talking to people who weren't required to talk to me. I had let the whispers drive me into isolation. This life I refused. "Charlie," I said one morning, "please schedule a meeting with the department heads for tomorrow afternoon. I have something I want to discuss." "What is it about?" "Office gossip." Charlie's eyes widened. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" "I'm sure that pretending it doesn't exist is a worse idea." The next afternoon, I stood in front of the department heads, 15 men and 3 women, all of them older than me, all of them experienced in the ways of bureaucratic politics. "I'm going to be direct," I said. "I know there are rumors about my relationship with Comrade Zhang from the Cultural Bureau. I want to address them openly so we can move on and focus on our work." The room was silent. "Comrade Zhang and I are colleagues. We share a professional interest in improving English education in our province. That is the extent of our relationship. Any suggestion otherwise is speculation without evidence." A man in the front row, Director Liu, a gray-haired veteran of the department, cleared his throat. "Deputy Director Lane, with all due respect, a woman in your position should be careful about appearances. It doesn't matter what the truth is. It only matters what people believe." "With all due respect, Director Liu, I didn't get this position by managing appearances. I got it by delivering results." I looked around the room. "If anyone here has concerns about my professional conduct, I invite you to raise them formally. Otherwise, I suggest we focus on the work that actually matters." No one spoke. "Good." Meeting adjourned. As I walked out of the room, Charlie fell into step beside me. "That was intense. It was necessary. Do you think it helped?" "Probably not. But at least now they know I'm not afraid of them." A few weeks later, I received another letter from Sophie White. This one was different. The handwriting was less steady, the words more hesitant. "Emily, I've been thinking about what you said at the tea house, about not being anyone's second choice. I confronted Ryan. I asked him why he still has your photo. He said he doesn't know. He said he kept it out of habit." "Habit? Not love. Not nostalgia. Habit." I realized that's what I've become to him. A habit. Someone who is there, who is convenient, who doesn't ask too many questions. I don't want to be a habit. I don't want to be someone's convenient option. I'm ending things with him. Not because of you, because of me. Because I deserve more than being someone's second choice. I don't know if you care about any of this, but I wanted you to know. You were right." Sophie, I read the letter twice, then set it down. Sophie was ending things with Ryan. In my past life, this would have felt like a victory. I would have rejoiced at her pain, at his loss, at the karmic justice of it all. But this life, I just felt tired. "Charlie," I called through the open door of my office. He appeared immediately. "Yes, Deputy Director. Cancel my afternoon meetings. I need some time to think. Is everything all right?" "Everything is fine. I just need some space." He nodded and disappeared. I sat at my desk, staring out the window at the busy street below. People were walking, talking, living their lives. They had no idea about the dramas unfolding behind closed doors. They had no idea about the woman sitting in the office above them, carrying the weight of 2 lifetimes. Ryan is free now, I thought. Sophie left him. He has no one. And then I thought, that's not my problem. Just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, my phone rang. "Deputy Director Lane. This is Director Zhang from the Ministry of Education in Beijing." I sat up straighter. "The Ministry of Education. Beijing. Director Zhang, what can I do for you? I've been following your work for some time. The teacher training program you've developed in your province is outstanding. We'd like to discuss replicating it nationally." Nationally. That word echoed in my head like a bell. "I'm honored, Director Zhang. The honor is ours. We'd like to invite you to Beijing for a meeting. Next week, if possible. We have some ideas we'd like to share with you." "I'll be there." I hung up the phone and sat in silence for a long moment. Beijing. The capital. The center of everything. In my past life, I had never even dreamed of going to Beijing. I had been too small, too scared, too convinced that I didn't belong in places like that. This life I was going. The train to Beijing left at 8:00 a.m. I sat by the window, watching the countryside blur past the rice paddies, the small villages, the factories belching smoke into the gray sky. I had no idea what awaited me in the capital. A promotion, a rejection, a chance to change everything. But I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't the same woman who had taken the bus to the county town, clutching a suitcase and a broken heart. I was ready. Whatever came next, I was ready. Beijing was overwhelming. The streets were wider, the buildings taller, the crowds denser than anything I had experienced in the provincial capital. People moved with a purpose that bordered on aggression, as if every second wasted was a betrayal of their potential. I took a taxi from the train station to the Ministry of Education, building a massive gray structure that seemed to stretch for blocks. The guards at the entrance checked my identification twice before allowing me inside. Deputy Director Lane, a young woman in a crisp uniform, said, approaching me with a clipboard. I'm Assistant Chen. Director Zhang is waiting for you. Please follow me. We walked down a long corridor lined with portraits of educational pioneers. The floors were marble. The ceilings were high. Every sound echoed. This was the big league. Director Zhang was a woman in her 50s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She didn't smile when I walked into her office, but she didn't frown either. She just observed. Sit, Comrade Lane. I sat. I've read your file. Teachers College graduate. 3 years as a military wife. Divorced. Then a rapid rise county teacher, training program instructor, deputy director in your province. She set down the file. That's an unusual trajectory. I've been fortunate, or driven, perhaps both. She nodded slowly. I like honesty. Most people who come to this office try to impress me with their connections or their family background. You haven't mentioned either, because I don't have either. Just my work. Director Zhang was silent for a long moment. Then she reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a document. The ministry is launching a national English education reform initiative. We want to standardize curriculum, train teachers, and prepare our students for a future where English will be essential. She slid the document across the desk toward me. We want you to lead it. I stared at the document. The title read, National English Education Reform Proposed Director. My name was on it. Director Zhang, I'm honored. But I'm only 26. There must be more experienced candidates. There are. But experience isn't everything. We need someone with vision. Someone who understands that education isn't just about passing exams, it's about opening doors. Your speech at the provincial conference made that clear. You saw my speech, someone recorded it. I watched it 3 times. I didn't know what to say. My hands were trembling slightly, so I clasped them in my lap. This position would require you to move to Beijing permanently. Long hours, high pressure, constant travel. Director Zhang's eyes didn't waver. Are you prepared for that? Yes, no hesitation. I've hesitated enough in my life, Director Zhang. I'm done with hesitation. For the first time, she smiled. Welcome to Beijing, Comrade Lane. Beijing was nothing like the county town. My new apartment was in a compound for government workers, 2 bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen with running hot water. It was more space than I had ever had, and at first, the silence was unsettling. You'll get used to it, my neighbor, a woman named Mrs. Chen, who worked at the Ministry of Culture, told me. Everyone feels like a ghost in a new place at first, but the walls absorb your voice eventually. Then it becomes home. I bought plants for the windowsill. I hung my grandmother's jade bracelet on the wall where I could see it every morning. I filled the bookshelf with English novels and Chinese poetry. Home. The work was relentless. The National English Education Reform Initiative required me to coordinate with experts from across the country, design new textbooks, train master teachers, and report to ministry leadership on our progress. I worked 12-hour days, sometimes 14. Sometimes I fell asleep at my desk and woke up with the sunrise streaming through the window. Deputy Director Lane, you need to rest. My new assistant, a young woman named May, said one evening. You're going to burn out. I'll rest when the work is done. The work is never done. Then I'll rest when I'm dead. May shook her head but didn't argue. She had learned that I was stubborn. 6 months into my time in Beijing, I received a letter from Ryan. It was thick, multiple pages, folded carefully, sealed with wax. The envelope had been forwarded from my old address in the provincial capital. I opened it in my apartment, sitting on the sofa with a cup of tea. Emily, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I wouldn't want to hear from me either, if I were you. But I need to write this. For myself, if not for you. Sophie left me. You probably already know that. She said she didn't want to be someone's second choice. She said I made her feel like a placeholder. She was right. I've been thinking a lot about the choices I made. The fake divorce. The mission. The way I let you believe I would come back, when I knew even then that I wasn't coming back. I told myself it was for the organization, for the greater good. But that was a lie. It was for me. I wanted freedom. I wanted adventure. I wanted a woman who could match my ambitions, not just support them. And I got what I wanted. Freedom. Adventure. Sophie. And I lost you. I heard about your work in Beijing. The English education reform. Everyone is talking about it. You're becoming someone important, Emily. Someone who matters. I always knew you were capable. I just didn't want to see it. Because if I saw it, I would have to acknowledge that I wasn't helping you become your best self. I was holding you back. I was the stepping stone. Not you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for another chance. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see you. I hope you find happiness. I hope you find someone who deserves you. And I hope that someday, you think of me not with anger, but with indifference. Because indifference means you've moved on. And you deserve to move on. Ryan, I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in the drawer where I kept my grandmother's bracelet. I didn't write back. 2 years passed. The National English Education Reform Initiative was declared a success. English test scores improved across the country. Teacher training programs were established in every province. New textbooks were distributed to millions of students. Then came the invitation that changed everything. The Ministry of Education has been invited to send a representative to the UNESCO World Education Conference in Paris. We would like you to be that representative, Deputy Director Lane. Paris, an international stage, a chance to share China's educational reforms with the world. I would be honored, I said. The conference was held in a massive convention center near the Seine River. Delegates from over 100 countries attended, each one presenting their nation's educational achievements. I was nervous, not because I doubted my material, but because I had never spoken to such a large international audience before. Just pretend you're talking to your students. May advised me before I went on stage. They're just people who want to learn. My students don't have translators in their ears. Same principle. I walked onto the stage. The lights were bright. The audience was a sea of faces. Ladies and gentlemen, I began. I am Emily Lane from the Ministry of Education of China. Today, I want to talk about something that matters more than test scores or rankings. I want to talk about education as liberation. I spoke for 20 minutes. I talked about the reforms we had implemented. I talked about the millions of teachers we had trained. I talked about the students, the children in rural villages, the factory workers studying at night, the grandmothers learning English alongside their grandchildren. Education is not a privilege for the few, I said at the end. It is a right for all. And when we treat it that way, we change not just individual lives, we change the world. The applause was thunderous. After the conference, delegates from a dozen countries approached me to discuss collaboration. The UNESCO representative asked if I would consider serving as a consultant for their global education initiatives. I'll think about it, I said, but I already knew the answer. On the flight back to Beijing, I looked out the window at the clouds below and thought about how far I had come. From a small county school to the world stage. From a woman who defined herself by her husband to a woman who defined herself by her work. I had done it. Not with revenge. Not with bitterness. Just with hard work and the stubborn refusal to give up. But the story wasn't over yet. Because as I landed in Beijing, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Emily, it's Sophie. Can we meet? I'm in Beijing. There's something I need to tell you. I met Sophie at a small cafe near the Ministry of Education. It was a neutral location, not too formal, not too intimate. Just 2 women sitting across from each other, drinking coffee that was far better than anything available in the county town. Sophie had changed. The military uniform was gone, replaced by a simple blouse and trousers. Her hair was shorter, her face thinner. There were shadows under her eyes that hadn't been there before. You look well, she said. You look tired. I am tired. She stirred her coffee, not drinking it. I left the military. I raised my eyebrows. Why? Because I couldn't be there anymore. Every uniform I saw reminded me of him. Every briefing. Every mission. It was like drowning in slow motion. I'm sorry, don't be. It was my choice. She set down the spoon and looked at me directly. I'm writing a book about the past few years, about the choices we make and the people we become. About you, about me, about a woman who was betrayed and didn't let it break her. Sophie's voice was soft. I want to tell your story. With your permission. I was silent for a long moment. Why? Because I think it matters. Because there are so many women out there who are told that their only value is as someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's caretaker. They need to see that there's another way. And you think my story shows that? I know it does. I thought about it. About the years of silence. About the bus rides and the cold dorm rooms and the endless grading. About the moment I walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau with the divorce papers in my hand. Write it, I said. But don't make me a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who refused to give up. That's exactly what a hero is, Emily. A week later, I received another message. This time, it was from Ryan. I'm in Beijing. I'd like to see you. Just once. To say goodbye properly, I hesitated. I had moved on. I had built a life that didn't include him. Did I really need to reopen that door? But something in me, curiosity, perhaps, or a desire for closure, made me say yes. We met in a park near the center of the city. It was autumn, and the leaves were turning gold and red. Ryan was sitting on a bench, staring at the pond. He looked older than his years. Gray streaked his hair. Lines marked his face. Emily, he said as I approached. He stood up, uncertain whether to shake my hand or hug me. In the end, he did neither. Ryan, I sat down on the bench, leaving space between us. You wanted to see me. I wanted to apologize. In person. Not through a letter. You already apologized in your letter. I know. But letters are easy. This is harder. We sat in silence for a moment. A family walked past a father, a mother, 2 children. The children were laughing, chasing each other around the pond. I'm leaving the military, Ryan said. I turned to look at him. Why? Because I don't deserve to wear the uniform anymore. I used it as an excuse. For the divorce. For the affair. For every selfish choice I made. He stared at his hands. I told myself I was serving the country. But I was really serving myself. What will you do instead? I don't know. Teach, maybe. Or write. Something small. Something honest. I nodded. That sounds like a good plan. Emily, he said, his voice breaking. Do you think you could ever forgive me? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Forgiveness isn't about you, I said finally. It's about me letting go of the weight I've been carrying. And I have let it go. Not because you deserve forgiveness, but because I deserve peace. Does that mean you forgive me? It means I don't think about you anymore. Not with anger. Not with sadness. Not with anything. You're just a part of my past. And that's where you belong. Ryan's eyes filled with tears. He didn't wipe them away. I'm sorry, Emily. For everything, I know. I stood up. The autumn wind rustled the leaves around us. Goodbye, Ryan. Goodbye, Emily. I walked away. I didn't look back. Sophie's book was published 2 years later. It was called The Stepping Stone, a story of betrayal and rebirth. It became a bestseller, not just in China, but around the world. Women wrote to Sophie from every continent, sharing their own stories of betrayal and survival. You should read it, May said, placing a copy on my desk. I lived it. I don't need to read it. That's not the point. The point is to see yourself the way others see you. I took the book home that night. I read it in one sitting, tears streaming down my face. Sophie had changed the names. She had altered some details. But the heart of the story was true. Emily Lane was not born strong. The final chapter read. She became strong. One choice at a time. One day at a time. She refused to be a stepping stone. And in doing so, she became a foundation for herself, for her students, for everyone who would come after her. I closed the book and set it on the nightstand. Not bad, Sophie, I whispered. Not bad at all. Years passed. Decades. I never remarried. Not because I was bitter, but because I never found anyone who added more to my life than I already had. My work was my partner. My students were my children. My legacy was my family. I traveled the world, consulting on education reform in dozens of countries. I received awards, honorary degrees, invitations to speak at prestigious universities. I was interviewed by journalists, profiled in magazines, celebrated as a pioneer in my field. But the moments I treasured most were the small ones. The former student who wrote to tell me she had become a teacher because of me. The colleague who said, Emily, you changed the way I think about education. The young woman who approached me at a conference and whispered, I read Sophie's book. It saved my life. I was going to give up. But then I read about you. And I decided to keep going. That was why I had done it. Not for the awards. Not for the recognition. For the people who needed to see that there was another way. In 2005, I received a letter from an unexpected source. It was from Ryan's daughter, a young woman named Lily Cooper, who had just graduated from university. "Dear Emily Lane," she wrote, "my father passed away last month. Before he died, he asked me to send you this letter. He said you would know what it means." I opened the envelope. Inside was a single sentence, written in Ryan's shaky, aging hand. "You were never the stepping stone." I was. And I'm glad you walked away. I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer with my grandmother's bracelet. And then I went back to work. To be continued in Part 8, I retired at 65, though retirement was a loose term. I still consulted, still spoke at conferences, still mentored young teachers who reminded me of myself hungry, determined, desperate to prove their worth. My apartment in Beijing was filled with books, photographs, and souvenirs from my travels. The walls were covered in artwork given to me by students. The shelves were lined with awards I had long since stopped counting. Auntie Emily, the children of my colleagues called me. I wasn't anyone's biological aunt, but I had become a sort of honorary grandmother to an entire generation. One evening, I sat by the window, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. The city sprawled below me, a forest of buildings, a river of lights. "You've come a long way," I said to myself. "From a county school to the world. From a woman who defined herself by her husband to a woman who defined herself by her work." "Are you happy?" a voice asked. I turned. It was Lily, my old roommate from the county, now a grandmother herself, visiting Beijing for the first time. "I am," I said. "I really am. No regrets. Regrets. I have plenty. But not about the big things. Not about leaving him. Not about building my own life." Lily sat down beside me, her old bones creaking. "You were always brave, Emily. Even when you didn't think you were." I wasn't brave. I was just too stubborn to give up. Same thing. We laughed, two old women watching the sunset, remembering a lifetime of choices. A few months later, I was invited to speak at a conference for young educators. The auditorium was packed with people in their 20s and 30s, the next generation of teachers, the ones who would shape the future. I stood at the podium, looking out at their eager faces, and I thought about the woman I had been at their age. Scared, uncertain, convinced that my only value was as someone's wife. When I was young, I believed that love meant sacrifice. I believed that if I gave enough, served enough, diminished myself enough, I would be rewarded with happiness. The room was silent. I was wrong. I told them my story, not the whole story, but enough. The fake divorce, the years of waiting, the moment I decided to walk away and build something of my own. "I'm not telling you this to make you hate my ex-husband," I said. "I'm telling you this because I want you to understand that you are not defined by the people who leave you. You are defined by what you do after they leave." A young woman in the front row raised her hand. "MS. Lane, do you ever wish you had remarried? Had children of your own?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "But I've had thousands of students. They are my children. And I've had a career that mattered. That is my family. Do you ever regret not fighting harder for your marriage?" "I fought for 3 years. That was enough." Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop fighting and start walking. After the conference, the young woman approached me. Her eyes were red. "Thank you," she whispered. "My boyfriend just broke up with me. He said I wasn't ambitious enough, that I was holding him back. And what do you think? I think he was wrong." "Good." I squeezed her hand. "Now go prove it." I died on a spring morning, just like the one when Ryan had first asked for the fake divorce. I was in my apartment in Beijing, surrounded by books and photographs and the accumulated treasures of a lifetime. The window was open, and the scent of magnolias drifted in on the breeze. My assistant, May, now a woman in her 50s, was sitting beside me, holding my hand. "Should I call someone?" she asked. "Your family. You're my family," I said. "You and the students, and the teachers I've worked with." "That's enough, Emily, don't cry, May. I've had a good life. A full life. More than I ever deserved." "You deserved everything," she said fiercely. "Everything and more." I smiled. "Tell me something. Is the book still in print? Sophie's book?" "Yes. It's been translated into 20 languages. They're making a film about it." "A film?" I laughed a weak, breathy sound. Imagine that. A film about a county teacher. You were never just a county teacher, Emily. No, I agreed. I wasn't. I closed my eyes. The magnolia scent grew stronger. In my mind, I saw the bus ride to the county town. The first day of class. The tea house with Sophie. The conference in Paris. The faces of thousands of students, their eyes bright with possibility. You were never the stepping stone, Ryan had written. No, I wasn't. I was the path.